Welcome to Capitalizing Your Life, the podcast that shows you how to take control of your money, build lasting wealth, and create financial freedom using the infinite banking concept. If you're ready to make your cash flow work for you instead of someone else, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Cameron Christiansen and Anthony Faso with Infinite Wealth Podcast. Welcome, Cameron and Anthony.
Glenn, it's good to be here. Man. Yeah.
We're going to try to work this through. You know, we got 3 people on one podcast, so it's going to try to not stumble over each other too much, but excited to have you on. I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I've learned a lot of infinite banking through your podcast and really your mindset that you guys always have on the podcast. And really, you guys are very honest with the whole structure and the syndications, and always love to listen to you guys.
Thanks. Yeah.
That means a lot, Glenn, because I mean, we put a lot of our heart and soul into this podcast and really like talking about infinite banking and ways of great passive income. So this is a good outlet for us. So we're excited to be on your show today.
That makes 2 people that love to listen to Anthony. That would be you and himself. So I'm excited to just join in today.
Oh, it's the beginning of the digs, you know, so.
This just got started, Glenn. I mean, he's starting off with a weak one, okay? But don't worry. I'm going to get some good ones in on Cameron.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess if you could, we could start with just really with Anthony, what was the problem that happened in your life to see that infinite banking was something that you would think about doing?
Well, I would tell you, back in that time, before I heard about infinite banking, I was running my own CPA firm. And I had guys knocking on my door, it seems every week. Like, oh, let's have your clients put in this whole life policy. And I'm looking at it like no cash value to year 5 and all this death benefit when I could buy term and invest the difference. Like that was my mentality, right? And when I think a lot of people can probably relate to that because that's what we're told. But then the pain or the problem or the awakening to me was what happened in '08. I mean, my 401k turned into a 201k overnight. And I saw what had happened to some of my clients. I distinctly remember this 72-year-old was sitting in front of me saying, Anthony, I did everything you guys told me to do. I maxed out my 401k. I paid off my house. I stayed out of debt. And now I've lost half of my retirement. My house lost half the value. I can't pay my bills. I'm like, you're going to have to go back to work. And he's like, I'm 72 years old. Unemployment is 10%. I mean, who's going to hire me? Mm. And when I saw that, I saw myself in that picture because really, I was doing the same thing he was doing. And that really, honestly, it scared me, right? And I started looking into it. And Cameron and I did a study. There was a recession every 10 years since the 1900s. Like, why would I expect anything different? And I didn't want to be in that same position that 72-year-old was. But then I also noticed I had some clients that were thriving during that time. And I'm like, what in the world are you guys doing? What books are you reading? Like, how is this mindset where you are able to excel when everybody is in decline? And that's when I got exposed to the infinite banking concept. And to me, I think I was in a position where I took my blinders off. I'm like, let me be open to some other ideas. And with infinite banking, very different than those agents knocking on my door. Cash value from day one. I mean, much less death benefit. And now I didn't view my policy as an expense. I viewed it as an asset.
Yeah.
Right. And that now that I had this cash, well, I don't trust Wall Street anymore. So what I did is I read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but this time I actually put it into practice. I didn't just read it and put it down. Like I read it and started executing it. So to answer your question, Glenn, that was a long-winded answer. And hopefully that allows for less time for Cameron to give his response. But that to me was my aha moment.
Glenn, briefly, the problem I was solving is I was a young kid at the time. I was late 20s and I had just started a business. And the biggest issue that I was solving, one, was for cash flow, right? My business was very seasonal. In 3-4 months, I'd make great money. And then I'd have 2 months where I had zero income whatsoever. And so what I ended up doing is I just sat on cash because the liquidity part of it was paramount really to anything else. And then long story short, I started looking at different options, went to all the traditional avenues, looked at those, and almost exclusively everybody said, well, you should put your money here. And I would say, well, when can I access it? And they would say 59 and a half. And even as a young kid, I'm like, people are really doing this? Like, this is insane. Like, there's no way I'm doing that. Right. And so I didn't do anything except in cash. And then I came across infinite banking by just pure luck. I always tell everybody, by the grace of God, I asked one question at the right time, and a gentleman introduced me to Nelson's book. And he said that if I would have read this when I was your age, it would have been the difference of millions of dollars. Read Nelson's book, introduced me to the cash value side of the whole life product. And man, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know how to create it or anything else. And so that was very intriguing and interesting to me. So learned as much as I could about it. And then I started implementing it just for myself and for my business. And man, lo and behold, it solved several needs that I had. One, liquidity, but also being able to kind of buffer those kind of peaks and valleys of my income and the cash flow. And then also was able to kind of save for my retirement in the background. It was just a great vehicle for me as a business owner at the time. So I started sharing that with other people, and here I am almost 20 years later, kind of helping other people implement the strategy as well.
Wow. So I think about that all the time with the 100% commission person, the person that has, for me, when I was in real estate, as in real estate agent, I remember getting the check and being terrified that I didn't know when the next check was coming. It was, and I always thought to myself, I actually left my job, a high paying job, went to go try to be a normal real estate agent. And because I ran out of reserves is how I ended up going back to that job, and it wasn't like I wanted to, it's just I had no other options. So how did that work out for you to get the bridge of the gap of that? So infinite banking, building a reserve, and then is there a way to build cash flow?
When we started this, I'll tell you, to be honest, we were helping people use their policy to finance liabilities. So they were financing cars or equipment, family vacations. And you know what? A lot of times people had debt, right? And so we would leverage these policies to pay off the debt. But I tell you, Glenn, what we found is we helped them pay off the debt, but we didn't solve the underlying problem of why they got in debt in the first place. And then all we did was give them more capacity to get into debt again. And so you can use infinite banking for an infinite amount of ways. There's many guys that are doing out there using it for liabilities. It does work for that, but that's not going to move the needle. That's not going to create that retirement or being able to live that life that you want. So we pivoted and started focusing. We like to say we're infinite banking for investors.
Yeah.
Right? The thing is, you want to buy that real estate. You want to buy that syndication, or you want to start a vending machine business. Whatever your asset of choice is, it's going to take capital. But the beauty of infinite banking is it gives you that liquidity. And so it's not tied in the 401k that you can't touch till you're in your 60s. You have the ability to use and leverage that now. So we have people using that to buy cash flowing assets. So they're building up that passive income. And our company goal as a whole is help 1 million people get to their passive income being more than their monthly expenses. So part of that way to get there isn't necessarily income, it's access to capital. So we will help people find or unlock capital that they didn't even know they had access to, and reposition it into something that's liquid that they can use. And for most clients, it makes sense to store that money in a policy.
Yeah.
And then we leverage against that to ideally buy cash flowing assets.
To kind of piggyback on what Faso was saying there, I'd say it similarly, but I would say that like when you're in a position to educate clients on infinite banking, giving someone access to their capital, it can be a double-edged sword, right? And what I mean by that is if we give them access without giving them education on ways to use it, man, more than likely we're setting them up for failure. And so we've always been big on education, and that's where the kind of that cash flow piece comes in is, you know what, we want to get somebody from unlocking their dollars, getting into a policy, and then we can help educate them on ways to create cash flow. And those are typically going to be based upon their skill set. So access and education should go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, I've stumbled through all of it to eventually end up in IBC. I've got into velocity banking and everything. And, the thing about the whole like structuring, there's a lot of debt just has a bad structure to it. It's not that the debt is bad. It's just like the repayment structure is terrible. Like I talk about this all the time. If it's a 0% loan that's like a repayment of 5 years, I think that's a terrible debt instrument. Like even though it's 0% repayment for 5 years, it's like you're still going illiquid. When you pay that payment and you're locking up your capital, it could be put inside a vehicle. Like, so I think when it comes down to the control aspect of your cash flow is when I think it really opens up to more opportunities and then reduces risk at the same time. Maybe you don't pay off your car 100% until you have enough cash value in your policy. But even then, do you need the reserve liquidity for that? So it's like, it's obviously per person and understanding their circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the one thing that I dislike about, like, just like when people talk about infinite banking and figuring out the arbitrage, I don't think it has anything to do with arbitrage. I think it has to do with control and liquidity. And if you have that, you're able to really take advantage of good opportunities.
Yeah, that arbitrage is there sometimes and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
If we see the interest rates rise, like you should not be doing this based on this arbitrage.
Yeah.
To me, what the advantage of infinite banking, the big thing is a control over return, that we have access to money that you have control of. And then the goal is to implement that and to execute that ideally in cash flowing assets.
What's the name of your passive income operating system? Is that the name of the?
That's it. BIOS.
That's it. I guessed it. I listened to you guys so much that I just rolled off my tongue.
Yeah, I was trying to think if we had a different name. No, that's the one, man.
Yeah. So what is that exactly?
The passive income operating system is the structure that we will help clients implement. Right. So infinite banking is a strategy. It's an idea, but there's got to be like some actionable steps, tactical steps that you give somebody.
Yeah.
The PIOS is the structure that we'll sit down and say, hey, go do A, B, and C with someone. And so the result of implementing the PIOS is helping someone take their earned income, transferring that over into passive income. And you can do that with very little management or oversight. So that's what the passive income operating system is there to do.
Hey guys, if you'd like to learn more about the infinite banking concept and how to flow your capital through your own financing system, my team and I are here to help. With over 35 years of experience, we can guide you in building a properly structured whole life policy tailored to you and your family. See the scheduling link below. Now, back to the show. So when we talk about passive income, would you say this is like, I know you've gave a couple examples, but I believe that having control of the investment helps a lot too. So like, just an example. So we have gone through refinances and there will be like a windfall and it'll be, $100,000 windfall into the actual syndication. And then it turns into that $100,000 has to be held back for maybe reserves or something like that. And I think more and more, like when it goes into this passive income thing, it's like when you're giving your capital over to somebody else, even if they were to say, give you a better return, which is where the arbitrage comes in again, it's like we still need access to that capital. And maybe that $100,000, or even if it was a quarter of that amount, would be more useful back into your account while you're building out something else that might not be associated with the exact property or the investment. And it's like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I've been going more and more of like, we just need access to our capital.
Well, I would say that and we're to blame this as well, where we paint this wide brush, with passive income, like everything's passive income, but really I think there's a few routes, we can guide our clients through. One is more truly passive, right? Which typically is going to be syndications, turnkey real estate. But then there's some, I would say, semi-passive, meaning where it might start off as active, but you can, once you build it and build the systems, you could turn it into passive income. I mean, so a couple examples. We have a lot of clients that are flipping raw land in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's very active setting the systems, getting the VAs. But after about 2 years, you can hire and you can have everything set up where it does get to be truly passive. Or we have clients investing in vending machines, which that is a very interesting business model. But the big difference is one of these active ones, there's no ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? You do a syndication or you buy a long-term rental. I mean, I'm a big fan of both, right? But you got to buy a lot of homes
Yeah.
to replace your income,
Yep.
right? And if you do a syndication, hopefully it turns out well or even exceeds what they projected. But still, I mean, there is somewhat of a ceiling. But if you have your own business, whether it's vending machines or, I mean, we do help clients kind of figure this out for them. It is more active, but there is no ceiling, right? I mean, with the land business, you just really need capital, and there's plenty of land out there for you to buy. Or vending machines, you could buy a route, or you could start, buy a couple machines, but there is no cap.
Yeah.
Like my son started a vending machine business a year and a half ago. He's now at 17 locations, and he's up to 10 grand a month in passive income.
Wow.
Right? In a year and a half. But at the beginning, he was in it.
How old is he?
He's 32.
Okay. I was thinking he was 16.
I know, because I look so young. I get it, Glenn. I get
When you
it.
said your son,
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
but still 10 grand is a lot of money for really anybody. For passive income, it's a great thing. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's expanding and getting more machines.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but that wasn't really truly passive. He's turning it into passive.
Yeah.
So it goes down to like, what are your goals? I mean, and some of that is, what are you trying to accomplish? What's the time frame? How much capital do you have? And how much time you have?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of people, I've been on your podcast, Glenn, that hopefully they love their W-2, right? Or they're grinding and they don't have time to start a vending machine business. So with them, some of the syndications can be a great way for them to get out of Wall Street, get some passive income, and even some potential gains. But again, there is a ceiling, and there is some loss of liquidity of these syndications, because it's not going to be easy if things change and you need to get your money out.
Yeah.
You have to be cautious of that. But there is a place for both, and it just depends on what's going to fit best for the individual.
Definitely. And that was really why, when I had the Millionaire Journey podcast, I got into about 100 episodes. And by the end of it, I kind of thought, I was like, I don't know if this is really helping people get to where they need to go, just having conversations with syndicators and stuff like that. And yeah, some of them were good, or a lot of them were good. But at the same time, it's like having access to that capital is more important to be able to, like, I have this example I tell everyone, because it's the one example that really stands out to me, is if I had $100,000 in 2016, when I did have it in my 401k, I guarantee would have been financially independent after that. And it was because I didn't have access to that 100 grand. What I did is I started calling around, finding people, looking for people to raise $100,000. And I was unable to raise it, but it was now that piece of land that was 400, it was a mobile home park. It was 400,000 at the time. And I would bet it's 1.5 million today. They scraped it. They tore it down. And then now they're building probably a storage unit site on top of it, but it was in a great location. So it's like, just having like that access to capital is so important for, taking advantage of those opportunities. Another thing I was thinking while you were talking is I have a couple people reach out to me that they're like, just like with what you're saying, is like, they're just looking where to go. How do I get started? Where do I go? It's like, and I would say they have high incomes, but their risk tolerance is, and it's not even, actually, I don't think it's their risk tolerance, because my risk tolerance was very low also until I started receiving cash flow. So once I was over $10,000, just like your son, once I hit like $5,000 to $10,000, I like quit my W-2, and I was like doing things that most people would think are very risky, but it took the cash flow to take the risk. So how do you help people like figure out where that is, like to get started, I guess?
Well, I'd say one thing we do is we have what we call the investor DNA.
Yeah.
And this is an assessment that tells people what kind of investor they are. Okay. And then based on that, we have a bunch of, maybe about 20 different asset classes, like from franchises to long-term rentals, flipping, whatever, like the whole gamut. But we walk them through, okay, based on your investor profile, these are some things to watch out on these investments, right? And then on these assets, these are some things that bode well based on your investor type. So that's one thing that will help people at least narrow down, like kind of allow them to better focus on a particular asset class. Because Glenn, you've probably seen it. I tell you, we've seen it on our podcast. To me, what the podcast really gives me two benefits. One, making fun of Cameron, and I get, complimented for it most of the time, not all the time. But two, getting exposed to what is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, before I thought Wall Street was the only avenue for financial freedom. And, then I thought, well, maybe it's multifamily or these syndications. But now I've learned with these syndications, there's self-storage, there's some debt funds, there's some oil and gas. I mean, there's all these different types. And, Cameron and I fell into it where we had a guy talking about flipping land, like, okay, let's flip some land. Oh, short-term rentals? All right, let's buy a short-term rental course. ATM machines? Let's buy a course, and we bought 3 ATM machines. But then we're also having our core business, and to us, our family is very important.
Yeah.
And it was distracting. Cameron likes to call it the shiny coins.
Yeah.
So it's important that we need to open up our mind to some ideas, but then we do need to focus, and ideally focus on maybe one or two asset classes, and we're more of to go deep more than to diversify in different ones, just to be an expert in an area or two.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely, and I tell people all the time, they say, all I need is one mobile home park. I was like, when you buy one mobile home park, you'll need to get 10 more to afford it.
Just to add to that, I just had a meeting this morning where I went through and I took a guy through kind of the investor DNA, and he had an idea of a couple investments that were of interest to him. We went through it and we looked at the investor DNA, which kind of ranked him and said, hey, here's your strengths. Here's maybe some of the things we're a little bit weaker in. And then we took that and we kind of put it against the amount of time, the amount of capital that he would need to invest, the influence, like the amount of energy that he wants to input into this, and then also the level of detail involved. And it actually came back with 3 opportunities that he was unaware of, right? He didn't think that that was a good fit. And so what that means is one of two things. One is that maybe we need to dig a little bit deeper, or maybe something was wrong in there, right? So we had a good conversation as far as, hey, this going through something like that can either reinforce what you already know, or maybe it might point out one or two things that we're not aware of. So great process for him. Now he's got some homework to go and do some research. And once he does that, we'll kind of reconvene and see what the next steps would be.
Yeah. And it's really like hindsight, looking back, it's like we think that I think the common dialogue, I guess, is that we should, if we're young, we should be taking more risk. And the more I look at it is like, I don't think that's the answer. I think it's more of like, we should just start and it's not really about the return. It's about the learning on the front end. And then once you get over it, like my first rental property was not a great property. It turned out to be fine, but like I underwrote the budget, like doubled. And then it turned into, that it didn't cash flow for 5 years. It was like, but the fact of me getting into it, and the reason why my parents moved into it, so I really didn't make any money. And it was like, these are all my ideas of like a rental property, but it ended up being great because it was a kickstart, and I think that's for anybody that's on the fence about doing this. It's like once you start, it opens up other opportunities afterwards.
Well, and Glenn, you brought up a good point. Rarely when you start something new, whatever it is, whether it's a new job or a new skill, or like Cameron trying to play baseball, he can barely swing a bat at the beginning, right? I had to help him lift it up, right? I got him a little tee, right? And we kind of worked our way up. But at the beginning, he was hitting the tee every time, right? And if he would have quit, right? Just like that first rental property, you're like, oh, I don't have success on my first swing.
Yeah.
You need to get that momentum. That first swing or that first deal, really, I think the focus should be on learning, right?
Definitely.
You're going to get paid. I don't know how much dollars, but you're going to get paid a lot of cents, as in financial sense from it. And then you can compound those lessons learned into your next deal. And now I will say Cameron can hit a ball off the tee.
It's amazing.
90% of the time. I mean, there's a little 10%, he's a little off, but
I think we can end it on that note.
Let's drop it on that. Yeah.
Where can people find you?
You can go to infinitewealthconsultants.com. And Glenn, just as kind of a thank you to having us on here, man, we do have that online course. We'd love to give your listeners access to it. And so they can go to infinitewealthconsultants.com /capitalizing your life. and that'll take them to the landing page. They'll get free access, go in there, and it's all educational. So a bunch of videos where they can go in there, learn a little bit more about infinite banking, how it might apply to them.
Awesome.
Like particularly, I'm sure, Glenn, you probably got people on the fence. They're like, this infinite banking thing, does it work? It sounds too good to be true, or I don't know about it. If you're an investor, you need to learn about it.
Yeah.
You're going to hear, and I'm going to tell you, if you do enough research, you're going to hear two things. Infinite banking is going to cure all your financial woes, right? Or it's the worst thing ever. Let me tell you, both of those, neither one of those are accurate. They're both opinions. You need to focus on the facts and see for yourself. I mean, reading the book, Becoming Your Own Banker is a great way. Cameron even read it. But we're giving you access to Infinite Banking 101, and we have a calculator in there that will walk you through, using cash to buy rental property or using infinite banking. And we kind of go through the math to kind of see the power of using infinite banking for your real estate, which will increase your returns and lower your taxes.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Well, Glenn, thank you. We appreciate being here. And I love the opportunity to make fun of Cameron in front of somebody else. So this is just great.
Thanks, Glenn. Had a great time. That was enjoyable. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Capitalizing Your Life podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone who you think would enjoy listening.